Hi, we're going to take a look at the SM harness, which is a self-modifying, self-improving agent harness built in Common Lisp with Claude Anthropic backends. So this project was something I've wanted to do for a long time, and it was a decision. I really wanted to work in Common Lisp for a couple reasons. A harness is something that typically you don't modify yourself. There are several projects out there like Pi, and I think there's one from DeepSeek, that allows you to modify the harness using something like plugins or extensions. A couple of them can modify it, some of the code to config, but in them allow you to fully modify the entire source code. So this project is an attempt to build a harness that allows it to change itself on pretty much every fundamental level. And the intent is for a project to be forked. If you're going to build an app, you can fork this harness and make this harness part of the repo. So the harness grows and builds along with the app. So as you add functionality or need different tools for a harness, they are built alongside the repo. Whatever app you're building, was it a web app or a desktop, whatever it is, the harness can grow along with it. Common Lisp is a great choice for that because it has a fundamental hot reload functionality, and it can use code as data, so it uses metaprogramming. So you can write lots of different app logics or functions or basically domain-specific languages or DSLs, and then have the harness build or interpret those things as data and execute those things as code. There's a lot to metaprogramming, and I won't cover it all in here, but what it allows you to do is have very powerful, very terse pieces of code, but you really want to be very careful in those things. And so this SM harness allows you to build itself. So if you have a new feature that you wanted to work on, it sort of comes out of the box with very basic things, what you would expect. So there's like a bash, a read, write file, and a reload harness. So bash and read and write a file are really all you need to get started. Everything can be done through those things, and then specific or deterministic tools can be added to that. And then the one thing on top of that is called reload harness. And what that allows this harness to do is write its own source code, update its own running source code, and then reload itself. And so if you have a chat session, as we'll see, you can go through and tell it to do a thing. So we're going to pick a topic here, and we're going to tell it to update itself. We're going to change how it displays that change. So what this is right here is we're going to add a new sort of like chip or a little video, or sorry, sort of like a section inside of a chat. So if you're familiar with the ChatGPT mobile app or web app, you have little cards or chips that go through. It's like your combo bubble, and then its response and stuff like that. We're going to add a new chip for when you reload the harness and you add a new capability. It's going to show a new chip in there that says we've added a capability, here's what it is, and here's a ticket for that. So we've wrote out that spec. We'll do a little run through of what a chat could look like. So we have a sort of a chat list here. This is sort of a main view. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new session, and we're going to say, tell me about yourself. But we're just going to do sort of this little sample here and just have it tell us about what it thinks it is. So there's a lot going on here. There's not a ton of polish here. I'm adding new polishes to like thinking. It's going through and talking about different things. So what it's got back here is it tells me about itself. So it says, I'm chatting embedded in SM Web UI harness. I'm running on Common Lisps. Here's what I can do. Here's the conversation we're talking about. What I should be careful about. So it's just sort of describing itself. And then we have this little auto response here. And this is something I added like a couple days ago that says, this is your first turn. Please call a tool called set title. Here's what it says. Call it the set session title here. And it will call the tools. We have a tool called here, set session title. And I called it agent self-introduction. So this is it done. I've called that. And if we go up here, we've already seen it. It's updated. So it's very live, very responsive. So we're going to tell it we're going to be working on this thing. So we are working on this. So let's make a plan. for making any changes. And this is a Sonnet. This is using Cloud Sonnet. If we go here and we read, this is just info about the session. It's got an ID. It tells what the back end of the model is. And I've added a couple different sort of features here. So you can upload a file, so you can go in. And then you've got something like browse files. So you can look at the full system here and see what is on the file system. If we go to app, this is the repo. The harness is the actual SM harness directory, what's running here. We can go and find all sorts of different stuff. Examples, this is where all the Lisp code is. And if we had actual changes here, we would see them in this little diff viewer. So this left side here, this little window, was built in SM Harness. I just gave it a prompt that says update the UI, update your own UI to do that. And what it did in that situation was it went and built sort of a child process to it with those changes, loaded up another common Lisp runtime and SPCL runtime, and then interacted with the harness, a new version of itself. Sent messages, saw how it worked, interacted, clicked on the UI, and then came back and then said, okay, it's good, copied those changes or returned them, reloaded itself and said, I'm done. And then in that same session, I could go and look at that. So right now it's going and it's reading its own code. It's understanding how it works itself. It's trying to understand the ticket that it's being assigned. So it's working through it right now. Okay, so it's finished the implementation. It's giving me a little summary here, and it's going to tell me that it has implemented it and the changes it's made. And so now I'd like to see it. I'd like to see the new tile chip coming in. And so I'm going to tell it to commit these changes. Don't push. Make a simple tool addition so I can see the new tile, the new chip. And here's the new chip. So here I can see it calls reload harness. This is one of the tools it has. And it says, okay, tool catalog changed by reload harness, added the ping tool. So now in its repertoire, it has a ping tool. This is the code that's been reloaded. Probably add another ticket to Okay, so it's called the ping tool. Here you can see it's got tool request. We got ping, tool completion pong. Had to reload the harness to see it, but it's there. So we saw the chip. We saw it use its own tool, which is pretty neat. Now it's done. So this is an example of a UI update, and then there's more that it could do for self-modifying. So you could imagine this would be applicable to something like add a new tool or set up a scripted session and say like, okay, create an MCP server to interact with an app or a web UI, and then both build the tool and then run the tool and self-modify. And then any of those changes, instead of having a separate commit or a separate harness or something like that, when you add a new capability to your app and you want to interact with it or do something, or whatever new capability you want to add to the harness that comes along with the app change, this comes together with it. Cool. So take a look at the repo here. Thanks for listening.